Hello. Yeah, let's go. Let's go, Carney. I did see that. I'm going to cover that today. That's going to be a portion of what we'll talk about. Can you hear me okay? How's the audio? Clear? Loud? Loud and clear? All right, great. Let's see. All right. I wanted to talk about, I wanted to cover Reasonable Carson from Reasonable Vegan. This was his position on crop deaths when he and I met. I think it's changed. Okay, so that was his original take on crop deaths, that they were um, a valid concern for a vegan. Um, Although I noticed 17 hours ago that he linked to a new channel that had put up a video titled "What is Veganism?" And I think that I know he's promoting this channel. I suppose that he believes that this definition of veganism is valid, which I think contradicts his original position on crop deaths when he and I first had a conversation. Here's the video that he's recommending that other vegans watch. This is the portion of the video that I thought was relevant to his change in position. Okay, vegans do not intentionally violate the negative rights of animals. So he's giving the vegans a couple of outs here in regard to crop deaths. First of all, by saying vegans do not intentionally violate, he's leaving open the excuse that, okay, perhaps this apple resulted in large amounts of animal suffering and death. However, we didn't intentionally violate the animal's negative rights. It was the farmer. And it's really an empty excuse because very few people who eat meat are involved in the slaughter and processing and packaging of those animals either. So that's not a valid excuse. But then you've got this negative rights thing. This is relatively new to the vegan propaganda. This is something that they dreamed up as a result of mine and a few others' efforts to expose the fact that veganism actually does cause gargantuan amounts of, well, at least I don't say veganism, but the crop agriculture that provides the items on the vegan menu causes gargantuan amounts of animal suffering and death. So it's not really a viable alternative to a meat-based diet or an omnivore diet simply because it does not cut down on animal suffering and death. So the vegans have come up with this BS excuse. More like a it's more like a magic word that they're trying to use to uh, they're trying to use this negative rights violations as a fancy phrase, which is kind of an abracadabra. Those deaths and sufferings don't matter. Not only are those deaths a negative rights violations, but this negative rights violations altogether is intellectually dishonest. It's an intellectually dishonest phrase. It's a way for vegans to get out of being held responsible for the animal suffering and death that their diet and their menu causes. I made a video the other day illustrating why it is a negative rights violation, and I'll play that for you now. Yeah, so just by putting the crops in, by placing a monocrop field anywhere on Earth, that in itself is what the vegans, by their own definition, would be called a negative rights violation. And so, this new phrase that they're using it's empty, it's intellectually dishonest. You see a vegan using that intellectually dishonest phrase, call them out on it. Someone called my attention to this earlier today, and this guy, Angelo, according to Carson, aka Reasonable Vegan, this guy, Angelo, has done the math on crop deaths. And I don't think that, for instance, you saw at the end of that video that we just played, there are gunmen that work for farmers that are constantly shooting animals that wander into the fields that inhabit the territory that was once belonged to those wild animals before the crop farmers that provide the items on the vegan menu, before they stole that from those animals. So they're constantly shooting these animals. So keep that in mind as we listen to this real quick. Okay, so this guy, Angelo, has done the math, and he's calculated that animal deaths are a little more than one per person per year. Is that what I heard? He says that he's very sure of himself. And you've done the math. Well, if you've done the math, then show us how you calculated this, Carson. Show us how Angelo calculated this. Just you saying it is completely an empty statement. You don't have anything backing it up except for the claims. And I bet that I could name probably 12 different ways that animals are suffering and dying as a result of the crop agriculture that produces the items on the vegan menu that Angelo did not include in his calculations. Yeah, I don't believe it. I think that you owe us, um, you owe it to us to provide the work on that. We need to see how that was calculated. I I mean, you've got Angelo Vignaroli. I think he's commented on my videos. I don't trust him. I don't think that he's honest. Show us the math. Show us the math. Next thing I want to cover is Carson from Reasonable Vegan contacted me and wanted me to provide him with the evidence that the position paper that had been published by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics had expired and was no longer valid. I think he said that if that was true, he wanted to get the word out because vegans are referring to that, and he doesn't think that they should be if it's not a valid reference. And if it's expired, if the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics chose not to renew that, then no vegan should be claiming that the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics has the position that a vegan diet is appropriate for humans of all ages and all life stages. So this is the email that I sent to Carson. Let me see if I can bring it in here. Yeah, I don't know if I can. Oh, there we go. All right, so the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics website right here. This is that. So this is their website, Eat Right Pro, Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. This is the page where they had published their most recent paper right here. And you see that that page is no longer available. They took it down. The position paper had an end date of December 21st, 2019. That date came and went, and for the first time since 1987, according to my research, they chose not to renew it this time, and they let it expire. So this was a position paper on the vegetarian and vegan diets, claiming that it was appropriate for human beings at all stages of life, and they did not renew it. Okay, they chose not to renew it. That is relevant. Carson had mentioned the fact that it's still up on PubMed, but that would be more like an archived copy or an archived reference to it. It's no longer in effect. So just because it's up on PubMed does not mean that it's still in effect. In fact, I think that the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics should contact PubMed and request that that be taken down. As far as I know, the only public statement that they've made about this is an obscure tweet on Twitter where they said, since the most recent position paper expired, the Academy currently does not have a position on vegetarian nutrition. That can be found here. Here you've got Eat Right Pro. This is the Academy. And they say, since the most recent position paper expired, the Academy currently does not have a position on vegetarian nutrition. A re-examination of the evidence for this topic is planned. However, the Academy is recruiting for expert panel members. Here's someone that says, I'm a dietitian and writer, and I'd love to contribute. Let's see, did they ever? Doesn't look like they even bothered to reply to this individual. So I would imagine that the reason that they wouldn't do that is because this person's not necessarily affiliated with any of the junk food industry or pharmaceutical industries. Okay, so I'll go back to the email. And I said to Carson, I said, yes, I know their statement doesn't specifically mention veganism, but the paper that they are referring to that has expired is the same one that mentioned veganism. So if the paper is expired, it's expired. And if it's expired, then it is no longer in effect and no longer can be claimed to be the Academy's position. So I actually did contact the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and I asked them these questions here. I said, what is the reason that the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics has not made, outside of a Twitter tweet, a very visible public statement regarding the Academy's current position of not having a position on the vegan and vegetarian diets currently? And the second question I had for them is, are you aware that doctors are still citing your former expired position on vegan and vegetarian diets and representing that expired position as current and valid? Thank you in advance for answering these questions. Best, Jenny Garland. Rather than just coming out and being candid with me, this is what their first concern was. Hi, Garland. Thanks for contacting the Academy. What is the name of the media outlet in which your news story will appear? Kind of a strange concern on their part. Seems like they would just want to be transparent, honest, forthright with the facts. So I said, the outlet is Garland Farms channel on YouTube. And a day went by, and I finally had to email them back and said, are we still communicating here? And they came back with, yes, you can attribute the following to the Academy. Since the most recent position paper has expired, an expert panel has been selected to re-examine the evidence on this topic via a systematic review. Have a good day. Get out of our hair. So I wrote back and I said, and they never emailed me again after I asked them this. I said, thank you for responding. I would, however, like to explain to my audience why you did not address my questions, which were, what is the reason that the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics has not made, outside of a Twitter tweet, a very visible public statement regarding the Academy's current position of not having a position on a vegan and vegetarian diet? And number two, are you aware that doctors are still citing your former expired position on vegan vegetarian diets and representing that expired position as current and valid? Can you please tell me why you are ignoring my actual questions? Again, they never got back to me on this. They completely ignored me. And as I told Carson in my email here, I suspect that the Academy's failure to renew their position and their lack of transparency on that fact may have something to do with Susan Levin. Okay. Susan Levin was one of the authors of the position paper. You see her name right here. Okay. So she died. She died last year. From what I can gather, it was apparently after a lengthy illness, but the Academy has not been transparent about the cause of death. So here's her obituary right here. So I think this has something to do with it. On Twitter, there's a vegan activist by the name of Chef AJ, and she apparently has disclosed the cause of death on Twitter. She was asked, Chef AJ, what is the cause of the untimely death of Susan Levin and MSRD, CSSD, and Director of Nutrition Education for PCRM at the age of 51? Pretty young, 51. After being an ethical vegan for 27 years. And according to this, Chef AJ said she had colon cancer. That's a pretty relevant fact that I think the Academy should be forthright with that information. So I contacted Chef AJ to confirm this, but so far she's ignored my message. I went to her Twitter and I asked her right here, I have a question for you. Did you say that Susan Levin, Director of Nutrition Education for PCRM, died of colon cancer? And you can see right here, someone actually retweeted my question, because I think I'm not the only person that's wondering this. And I will show you the actual Twitter page right here. So there I am. This was on June 3rd. She never replied to me. I don't know. I'm guessing she probably got in a little bit of trouble for disclosing that. I don't know that to be a fact, but I'm guessing that that's what happened. As I said to Carson from Reasonable Vegan, I don't think that veganism has been that kind to Chef AJ either. This is the photograph that she has of herself on her Twitter profile, and this is what she actually looks like today. That's what some people might call vegan deterioration. And then there's this, I sent Carson, I doubt he'll watch this. I don't think that he's interested in this kind of thing, but there's a great documentary on YouTube, how corporations brainwash the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, food industry corruption. It's a 26-minute documentary. I highly recommend that you watch it. It kind of gives the, what's happening behind the scenes with the Academy. I'll give you an example. Here's some in the news. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics took millions of dollars from junk food and sugar companies to shape national food policy. And this is a fact, and I've also been told that they hold stock in these the junk food industry as well. Here's another one. Revealed group shaping U.S. nutrition receives millions from big food industry. Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics has a record of quid pro quos with a range of food giants, documents show. Newly released documents show an influential group that helps shape U.S. food policy and steers consumers towards nutritional products has financial ties to the world's largest processed food companies and has been controlled by former industry employees who have worked for companies like Monsanto. These are relevant facts that I don't think Carson would talk about. I don't think that these are uncomfortable facts for a vegan, and this is not something that they actually want you to know. So this would be something that you need to make note of. That anytime they uh, refer to this position paper by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, not only is that position paper expired and no longer valid, but also they're receiving big money from the ultra processed food industry. All right, I'm going to go back here for a second. Okay, I think someone said no sound on clips. Did y'all not get any sound on the video clips that I showed? Oh man. Okay. Let me see if I can fix that. Let me see if I can figure out why I'm not getting any sound here. Hmm. Well, that sucks. I'm not sure why I'm not able to get sound. It's crazy. Hmm. Yeah, I know that you've been trying to tell me, but I was on the pages. I had to go to the other tabs, and I wasn't able to actually see what was happening with um, the audio. What you guys were saying, I couldn't see it. So let's see here. I see Reasonable Vegan is in the comments. Carson, you're welcome to come on if you feel like it. If you don't feel up to it, I completely understand. I'm still trying to figure out why I'm not getting any. Let's try it. Let me try it a different way here. Okay, let's try it like this.
Purpose. But why would we want to avoid exploitation of and cruelty to animals?
Tell me if you're getting
Vegans
sound
do not
now.
intentionally violate the negative rights of animals. Negative rights are often referred to as fundamental rights since they place limitations on others to prevent them from infringing on your basic freedoms. But
Okay, so did you get sound that time? All right. All right, I figured out what it was. All right, so we'll go through that again. Let's pull that up. So this is
and cruelty to animals.
yeah. So this is the new vegan um, cope on crop deaths is, and this is very new um, for the mainstream vegans to be using this as an empty excuse to dismiss crop deaths as anything that anyone should care about at all. So this is the channel that Carson from Reasonable Vegan is now promoting. I'm assuming that Carson does endorse this definition of veganism, which is employing this abracadabra word of, or this abracadabra phrase, negative rights violations.
Because vegans do not intentionally violate the negative rights of animals.
Yeah. All right, so that's all right. Now I'm going to pull up another one that This is another one that you didn't hear. I'll pull that up as well. This is why the negative rights violations is not applicable. The saying that crops do not violate wild animals' negative rights violations. This is why it doesn't hold water.
Violating their rights. And it's the farmers that are protecting their property rights from those rodents.
We stole countries. That's what you do. That's how you build an empire. We stole countries with the cunning use of flags. Yeah. You just sail around the world and stick a flag in. I claim India for Britain. And they go, you can't claim us. We live here. 500 million of us. Do you have a flag? We don't need a bloody flag. It's our country, you bastard. No flag, no country. You can't have one. That's the rules that I've just made up. And I'm backing it up with this gun.
So yeah, I don't think that any of Carson's vegan buddies. Let me see if I can pull up this Angelo Vignaroli video again. Okay, so I'm going to pull this one up. This is Carson's guest who claims to have done the calculations on crop deaths.
Trying to figure out if when we count the wild animals that die from crop deaths, and you've done the math, and it's a little over 1 per person per year, which is a small.
So Carson is making the claim that Angelo Vignaroli has done the math, and he's come to the conclusion that a crop-derived or crop-based diet results in a little more than 1 animal death per person per year. I don't buy it. In fact, I know that that's not true. And as I said earlier, when the audio wasn't working properly, that I bet I could list 11, somewhere between 11 and 13 ways that animals are dying as a result of crop agriculture that Angelo did not factor in. So I'm a little bit disappointed that Carson didn't show us the work, that he didn't challenge Angelo on his claims. Just, anytime I tell Carson something, he wants me to back it up with facts, prove it. And it seems like every time a vegan tells Carson something, he just accepts it as the truth. So, yeah, I want to ask Carson, please show us that work. We want to see the work. We want to see how he came to this conclusion. I want to be able to have a chance to prove that Angelo's got it wrong. And I guarantee you he does have it wrong. Let's see here. I think that's all of the videos that. Oh, yeah. Let's see. Hold on a sec. I wanted to show you Carson's original position on crop deaths was something like this here.
So leading to.
But I want anybody watching this. I know a bunch of people that are looking forward to watching this conversation. I think it's very important for us vegans to take what you're saying very seriously. I just want to, because a lot of people will, like I said before, they're vegans. They'll hear something that will seem to counter their ideas, and they'll try to jump away from it. But this is very important. If to get our fruit trees, there are rodenticides that are making them bleed and suffer to death, then I think that's a huge deal, and I think we should really look into that. And I think, and I agree with you that that might even be a more important focus of law than something else. I don't know if you agree with me here. I'm guessing you probably would.
So, in other words, it seems now if Carson is now promoting a new vegan channel that's using this phrase, negative rights violations, which is a cope, it's an excuse to dismiss crop deaths, then I'm assuming that Carson's position on crop deaths has changed, or else I don't think he would be promoting this new channel and promoting this guy's definition of veganism, because he is dismissing the intentional and unintentional deaths being caused by the crop agriculture that provides the items on the vegan menu. So I would like for him to address that. Don't expect him to, but it would be nice if he would explain why he would be promoting a vegan YouTube channel that's got that definition, that's trying to dismiss the relevance of crop deaths altogether. Most vegans do not want those animals to be considered. That death and suffering, I think they actually like it. It kind of makes them feel powerful, because they feel like they're getting away with something by taking meat away from people based on the myth that veganism is cruelty-free. Meanwhile, their diet is actually causing more suffering and death. And I think that there's a lot of vegans that are misanthropes, and they really get off on that. And I'd be really disappointed if Carson is going down that road now. The next thing I think that we'll do today, real quick, is I wanted to look at another one of these Earthling Ed debates. I don't think that Earthling Ed actually debates anyone. In my opinion, all of these are scripted. These people that are supposedly meat eaters, these people do not look like meat eaters to me. They look like vegans who were cherry picked, given a script to study, and under strict they're under strict rules to kind of concede or to lose the debate. And I wanted to look at if you haven't seen them, look in my live archive there, and I've done this a few times, and every time the meat eater concedes very quickly, ends up gushing over how smart Earthling Ed is, talking about how they've lost the debate, and they continue to regurgitate vegan talking points. I haven't watched this one. It's called I'm Uncomfortable, a Fisherman Takes on a Vegan. So let's see if this video comes across as authentic. I don't think it will, but let's test Earthling Ed one more time and see. Here we go.
If you found that fish could feel pain, would you then stop fishing? So you're not actually against torturing animals.
I'm not torturing them, I'm eating them.
But the consequence of, especially fishing, where they're pulled out of their natural environment, put in a bucket, as you say, is kind of torturous, isn't it?
I mean, I eat them.
Yeah, but you are torturing them and then killing them to eat them.
So should I kill them before I put them in the bucket?
You should just...
Yeah, so I think he's pretending right now. He's doing a pretty good job of pretending, but this is a preview.
Shouldn't catch them or kill them at all.
Ain't gonna work. I mean, I like food.
So you are in
Now look at this guy. Look at his arms. He's about as muscular as Earthling Ed, which is a common theme when you see a vegan man. They have these womanly arms, these very frail looking limbs.
favor of torturing animals.
All right. I'm a little uncomfortable now.
Oh, do you see that? All of a sudden he's uncomfortable because he's trying to portray a meat eater who's been had by a vegan.
At all.
Ain't gonna work. I mean, I like food.
So you are in favor of torturing animals.
All right. I'm a little uncomfortable now.
It's just a yes or no, really. Are you in favor of torturing animals?
No.
No. So why do you do it then?
Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well and Happy New Year. I'm just interrupting this video briefly because the paperback edition of my best-selling debut book, This is Vegan Propaganda, was published. Delight. It's the Friday gift. It has a good book. It's a vegan discussion book. Featuring the debate.
The Arizona State University in Phoenix, Arizona, with a banner that says, "Give me your best argument for not being vegan."
I bet that there's not even a banner there, because if there was, there would be a real person that would sit down, someone who is an actual opponent of veganism. Again, I believe that this guy that looks like almost Earthling Ed's twin brother, I think that he is a vegan activist who has volunteered to pose as a meat eater. And I think that as we watch this, it'll be apparent that that is the case, because he will concede, he will use vegan talking points, he will pretend to lose the debate.
Vegan.
Okay.
You've kindly sat down, thank you. What is your response to that?
If we didn't eat animals, wouldn't there be more animals living longer lives, eating more greenery than they are eating right now?
Okay. The reason we have all these animals is because we breed them into existence, right?
Okay, first of all, I have goats and cows. I've never bred any of them into existence. They are driven to perpetuate their own genetic heritage into the future. I've got a bull. He enjoys pushing his genes into the future, and the cows are more than happy to couple up with him. So I'm not breeding them into existence. They're breeding themselves into existence, and I'm giving them a safe place to do that.
The argument,
I mean, like, if nobody was hunting these animals,
yeah, okay, so
they would reproduce like mad.
okay, so all the animals that we
So that's another. These are talking points that the vegans can easily debunk, and so I believe this guy's been scripted to use these easily debunkable counters to veganism. So he's saying, if we didn't eat these animals, then they would proliferate. They would be everywhere, and then we would have a problem with overpopulation. I'm pretty sure what Earthling Ed is going to say, and he's already alluded to this, is he's going to claim that these animals should not exist, that they only exist because we're breeding them into existence, and if we stopped eating them, then there would be no need to breed them into existence.
we have right now, we've bred into existence, either through artificial means or through the facilitation of breeding because of the farming scenario that exists.
Okay, I'm not facilitating the breeding. These animals are driven to breed. Just like any other animal, they're trying to push their genes into the future generations.
As the number of people going vegan increases, the number of animals that we breed into existence is going to decrease. Now, as we stop breeding animals into existence, that means that we're not replacing animals anymore. So an animal gets killed, but they're not replaced because they're not being bred anymore. So animals who are not bred into existence cannot procreate. So the animals who are being bred and who are being farmed are going to be killed. There's no way around that. They will be killed. But that doesn't mean that we should keep breeding them into existence, because if we stop breeding them, we wouldn't have this problem.
Okay.
Right?
I'm sort of understanding now. I'm sort of.
Oh yeah, so that was easy, right? He's got no comeback for that. You can see the tip of the iceberg of his concession showing up right now. This guy, he doesn't look to me, he's not behaving in a way where the story is that he was walking by and he saw Earthling Ed sitting here, And he was such a staunch meat eater that he sat down to debunk veganism. And at the slightest push, he falls right over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
Okay.
You've won. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you've won. So we haven't even gotten started yet, and this guy is already conceding defeat to Earthling Ed. Does that sound like someone who was confident enough to challenge Earthling Ed out of the blue like this?
So,
I'm gonna keep eating meat.
why?
It's delicious.
It's delicious. So here's the other vegan talking point. They can find this easily debunkable because it's an appeal to taste pleasure, right? None of these guys ever talk about the 15 different nutrients that you can't get from plants and the fact that the vegan diet is nutritionally deficient. No reference to that ever from these so-called opponents of Earthling Eds.
So does the enjoyment of what we do to animals morally justify what happens to animals?
I mean, No. Give me a second. So
He's trying to remember the script, right? It's like, oh no, give me a second. I think there's a guy standing out of frame who's got a briefcase full of cash, and he's starting to close it. Like, you're not doing a good job. You forgot the script, and he's saying, no, give me a second. I'll remember it.
So I fish.
Yeah.
You know, I like fishing.
So I guess the script was, okay, you're a fisherman, right? You're a fisherman, and you're going to argue against veganism from a fisherman's position, even though he already conceded defeat to Earthling Ed a while ago. He said, you won.
I wouldn't say I like killing animals, but I feel like that's natural selection. That's the way of the world. Eat or be eaten. It's fight or flight. You know, it's the way of the world.
Eat or be eaten, fight or flight. It's the way of the world. Eat or be eaten, fight or flight, that's not, they don't really go together. I mean, fight or flight, yes, it's a reaction to facing danger, but that's not really, he's got the general script. I think that he got nervous before the skit, and so he can't really remember what he was going to say. So he's pulling out phrases out of his butt that don't really fit what he's trying to argue.
World.
But if you didn't fish, you wouldn't be eaten.
I wouldn't be what?
You said it's eat or be eaten. But the fact that if you didn't eat those fish, that doesn't mean that you would be eaten. So vegans don't get eaten because they've stopped eating animals. So it's not really eat or be eaten, not for us, because we don't live in that world anymore.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
That's a fair point. Again, just constantly laying down for Earthling Ed, constantly conceding. And again, this guy supposedly was ballsy enough in his position against veganism to choose to challenge him to a debate.
It comes down to the fact that I like the way it tastes.
So just is something.
So now he's back to taste pleasure. These are straw man arguments. You could argue that an Oreo cookie gives you taste pleasure. A vegan donut gives you taste pleasure. This taste pleasure, I see very few people using that as an argument against veganism. But every time I watch one of these Earthling Ed debates, that's one of the founding arguments from these people that I think are actors that sit down and pretend to debate Earthling Ed, is this taste pleasure, which is such a straw man argument.
Something morally justified to do to an animal if we enjoy it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's not morally right, but I'm not a morally good person.
Sure. That doesn't provide justification to do whatever we like. No one's morally pure, but that doesn't mean that we're justified to continue doing things that we recognize to be immoral just because we can't be perfect.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So what?
Yeah, that's fair enough. He's got that phrase down. He remembers that part of the script.
What is your reasoning for not being vegan?
I like the way it tastes.
I like the way it tastes. He said that already, what, 4 times? So that's the best argument that this guy can come up with. He's not gonna mention the fact that without livestock, you're not going to have organic produce. So people like Carson from Reasonable Vegan channel, he's not going to be able to say in the future, oh, well, I only eat organic, so I don't participate in any of these deadly pesticides. Number one, Carson, organic pesticides are deadly. Organic produce uses bone meal and blood meal and livestock manure and urine. All of those won't exist anymore. So if you're successful in outlawing my type of regenerative livestock agriculture, as well as all the other types of livestock agriculture, then what you're claiming is the best produce, the organic, will not exist anymore. So I don't expect you to address that fact, because that's one of those kind of a hard fact, a hard question, and vegans do not like to face the hard questions.
And I'm not morally good. Yeah.
So
now he says, I'm not morally good. And you see him, his eyes shoot over to the right. To me, it looks like he's looking at the guy with the suitcase full of money, because every time he concedes or paints himself as an immoral person for eating meat, he's probably been told that he's going to get another stack of cash. So it's like a bonus. So as the guy's going along, the cash man is over there stacking up the actor's bonus.
that implication then, what is your reasoning for not being vegan?
I like the way it tastes. And I'm not morally good. Yeah.
So by that implication then, we can do anything we want to an animal as long as we enjoy it, and that's fine because we can't be morally pure.
Sure.
Do you see any potential concerns around that?
You know, I think that they at least die quick. It's not painless.
Well, that sadly,
They at least die quick. It's not painless. This guy cannot remember the script to save his life.
isn't necessarily true. But that's beside the point.
I don't know how it happens. I just eat it.
Yeah. Well, maybe you should watch how it happens.
Why would I do that?
Well, so then you know.
But I'd still eat it. That would just make me kind of disgusted. But, you know.
Well, so now he's saying that if he saw where his food came from, then he would obviously be disgusted. Well, what if you sat down to eat a bowl of oatmeal and you saw all of the raccoons and baby rabbits that were shot and dismembered and disemboweled so that they wouldn't eat the plant food? Would that make you disgusted?
Or maybe it make you think twice about it if you realized that it was disgusting. And
has Earthling Ed ever shown you what it looks like for a field mouse to die from the neurotoxic rodenticides or the anticoagulant rodenticides that cause the animals to bleed to death internally? Has he ever showed you that footage?
even beside that point,
it's not like the blood. I mean, it'd probably be like I've gutted a fish myself before. I'm not afraid of like the blood. I mean, that's
so. This guy's a fisherman, and now he's saying I've gutted a fish myself before. If you're a fisherman, you've gutted lots of fish before. You wouldn't be bragging about, one time I gutted my own fish. That's not something that a fisherman says.
that's the way.
yeah, I mean, so have I, incidentally. But I don't do it anymore. If I can spare an animal's life by simply not fishing and gutting them, then morally I should.
Okay, so now he's back to sparing lives, and we know that the vegan diet does not spare lives.
There's a lot of fish in the sea, you know.
Well, that's dwindling.
There's a lot of fish in the sea.
Not for much longer necessarily. But that doesn't make a
That's
difference.
not because of us eating. That's probably
Yeah, there's less fish in the sea now because of all that nitrogen runoff from the crop fields is causing oceanic dead zones.
More argued about us dumping stuff into the sea that shouldn't be there. There's gonna always be an abundance of fish.
That's not the fishing industry would like to beg to differ. But that point aside, even if it was the case that there were no population issues, it's not about that. It's about the individual, isn't it? It's about the individual animal and what they're experiencing. So even if killing them didn't destabilize the entire population, it doesn't make killing them moral, because we're talking about morality from the position of the individual who's been harmed.
Right. Again, he's not talking about the individuals that are harmed by the pesticides, the rodenticides, insecticides, fungicides, herbicides, all of the heavy machinery that kills animals, the gunmen that are out there killing animals. He never talks about crop deaths unless it's a dismissal of crop deaths as an issue that vegans should care about. You want to care about these animals, but you don't want to care about these animals.
There's a food chain. You can't just deny the food chain. If we stop eating, that takes out a huge predator out of the food chain. That would change the ecosystem completely. I mean,
Well, the farming isn't part of the food chain. We breed these animals into existence to kill them. Fishing, we can talk about fishing in just a moment, but that point aside, that's nothing to do with the food chain. Food chains.
It actually does. If done correctly, if you're raising livestock, then you're using technologies like regenerative ruminant grazing systems, which the animal eats food, drinks water, and then it's out there grazing in the wild prairie, natural pasture, lots of biodiversity. So it's going to drop some manure. It's going to pour some urine on the ground. So all of that goes back into the soil. And so there's the natural carbon cycle is working there because of these farm animals. And so the idea that they're not a natural part of the ecosystem is false. Before the 1800s, there were about 160 million ruminants on what we now call the continental United States. And that's actually down now, counting wild and domesticated ruminants. We've taken it from 160 ruminants down to 115 million ruminants. So 160 million, now it's 115 million. So we actually should add some ruminants to the picture so that we can start building the soil back after all of the soil degradation and erosion that's been caused by the tillage that's carried out by the crop agriculture that produces the items on the vegan menu.
Balance ecosystems. They create some form of a stabilization between predators and prey. We don't do that. We breed these animals by the tens of billions and kill them. It's got nothing to do with a food chain.
So what I'm hearing is you're against farming, like breeding animals to kill, but are you against hunting?
I'm against the infliction of unnecessary suffering to others. We're still. I wouldn't use that justification for your dog. We can kill anyone quickly.
Would you use that justification for a rabbit that's out there eating the spinach or the kale? What about a deer that's in the cornfield? What about a pig that's in the soybean field? What about a squirrel that's in the tomatoes? These are animals that are constantly dying for the vegan menu, for the plants, for the crop agriculture. The crop agriculture is what the vegans want to force us all to rely upon. And then that will be deficient. Then we're going to require supplements that will have to be routinely delivered in plastic bottles, supplements made from petroleum, using petroleum for heat, with gargantuan amounts of methane emissions, etc. It's a worse system than what we have now. And if the vegans would get behind farmers like me and try to promote animal welfare and regenerative ruminant grazing agriculture, then that would be a moral thing to do. But what the vegans are doing is immoral.
Yeah, when you put
Yeah.
down a dog, it's quick.
Yes. Okay. So if an animal needs to be euthanized because they're suffering, you can find a justification to kill them. But the animals who we farm, we kill because we want to consume them. It's not a moral thing. It's not a merciful thing. It's not a benevolent thing. Euthanizing your dog once they've lived a long and happy life because they have cancer and will suffer as a consequence is a benevolent thing. But cutting the throat of a cow who's 24 months old or younger because we want to consume their flesh is not benevolent.
I mean, how old?
How old are the animals that are killed via crop protection measures? He never talks about that, does it? Out of sight, out of mind.
Cows live.
20 to 25.
Okay.
So what's your position now?
I'm still gonna eat meat.
For what reason?
I like the way it tastes.
Okay, so that's 6 times that he's used that straw man excuse.
Does the implication out therefore not mean that anyone can do anything to an animal as long as they enjoy it?
I wouldn't say I enjoy the killing of animals. I enjoy the taste of the animal.
Which comes as a consequence of them being killed. So they are killed for something that you enjoy.
Yeah.
So are we allowed to do whatever we want to an animal as long as we get enjoyment from the process or the consequence of doing so?
I don't like the way you put that, but I mean, yeah.
Can you think of any concerning scenarios that might create?
I don't know. No.
Have a think.
No.
What can someone do to an animal that they might enjoy?
What are you trying? Kill it for food?
Sure, kill for food, but what else?
What else? Let me see if I can think of something. How about this? Let me pull something up. What could someone do? Maybe like this guy, sexy vegan. He pleads no contest to a charge that he had his pit bull lick his rear end. So maybe a sexual assault, is that what he might be referring to? Because this is probably vegans want to make animals equal to humans, which is obviously it's a direct avenue into bestiality when you think about it. And here's proof that that's exactly where it heads. So, yeah, why doesn't Earthling Ed use vegan examples of what could be done to animals in order to derive pleasure from it?
What? Torture?
Torture? Sure.
Okay, wait. No, you're getting into torturing. I never said torturing an animal is fine.
But if someone enjoys it
for food is a different story. That's the food chain. That is eating.
You're doing it for enjoyment. And
the word nutrition, the phrase essential nutrients never comes up.
So and you just said that you enjoyed it. Okay. And then I asked you, does that mean we can justify anything through enjoyment when it comes to animals? And you said, yes, that means that torturing is permissible. It means that kicking a dog because you find it fun is permissible. It means that, dog fighting is permissible. You didn't say those things.
Words in my mouth now, sir.
I'm using the logic that you're using to show you why that logic shouldn't be used to morally justify what we do.
You're broadening my logic.
I'm applying it consistently to show it's flawed.
May be flawed, but I'm not torturing animals. I just enjoy the way they're food.
I mean, I'm sure the fish is pulled out of the ocean may beg to differ, but that point aside, even if it's torture or isn't torture, which is probably pretty torturous. I mean, we know that fish in a bucket creates cortisol to be released, which is a stress hormone, obviously. So that's probably quite torturous for them. So you're not actually.
But fish don't actually feel pain.
How do you know that?
I don't know. I think I've heard it.
You've heard it.
Yeah.
Where did you hear it?
From other fishermen.
From other fishermen, wow.
Yeah.
what a convenient surprise that may well be.
Do they feel pain?
Yes. Yeah.
Do they really?
They do. Something to think
about. Can you cite that evidence for me?
I would be more than happy to. I'll write it down for you so you can actually go and look at it yourself. Okay.
Yeah, I think the citation on that refers to some study where they applied some type of irritant to the mouth of these fish, and the fish, according to the vegans, rubbed their mouths on the bottom of the lake or what have you. I wonder, were these carp? What do carp do? They put their mouths on the bottom of the pond or lake or creek or river because that's where they feed. So I don't think that there's actual evidence of that. I think that most of their citations, much like those vegans that will cite the American Dietetic Association as having a position on veganism is appropriate at all stages of life. Vegans don't usually look into it any deeper than just hearing what they want to hear and running with it.
Fantastic. If you found that fish could feel pain, would you then stop fishing? So you're not actually against torturing animals.
I'm not torturing them, I'm eating them.
But the consequence of, especially fishing, where they're pulled out of their natural environment, put in a bucket, as you say, is kind of torturous, isn't it?
I mean, I eat them.
Yeah, but you are torturing
I mean, I eat them.
them. And
This
then
guy's a terrible actor.
So should I kill them before I put them in the bucket?
you shouldn't catch them or kill them at all.
I ain't going to. I mean, I like food.
So you are in favor of torturing animals?
All right. I'm a little uncomfortable now.
Well, it's just
So here's it's like the fourth time that he's conceded here.
yes or no, really. Are you in favor of torturing animals?
No.
No. So why do you do it then?
I enjoy the food.
Okay. So you're not against torturing animals then?
I am against torturing animals for no reason.
But if you don't have to consume them, then it's not a reason that's justified.
But I mean, I like to consume them, so that's my reason.
So we can torture animals as long as we like the consequence of torturing them.
Sure. Yeah.
Is that the hill you want to die on?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah?
Yeah, I like that hill.
So you
We'll just go
are
down.
Yeah. So you are in
I like
favor
food
of
too much. Yeah.
You like food too much. You can enjoy food that isn't animal-based food, of course, as
No,
well.
I mean, I can't really just eat greens. It doesn't work for me.
You don't have to just eat greens.
Again, no mention of essential nutrients that are missing in greens and all the other plants.
Of course. But see,
Tell me something that's as good as meat that you eat.
I mean, plant-based substitutes taste just like meat.
He said plant-based sausages taste just like meat. First of all, no, they don't. Number two, they don't have the essential nutrients that you get from meat. And number three, if you're a vegan, why would you be pursuing items that look and taste like meat? Doesn't make sense.
Do that.
Yes, they do.
I see. I worked at Burger King and I've smelt them. They don't smell very good when being cooked.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to
And
hear
you'd
that.
rather eat something natural that actually, is.
This is the most realistic thing that he's said so far, because those vegan mock meats do smell like piss.
Well, like the actual meat from Burger King.
I didn't say Burger King, but I eat fish,
Fish.
fresh fish.
I know you do. I know you do. But just because you do doesn't mean that you should. And this is where the tangent that we go down becomes a little bit repetitive, because we're trying to establish why you do something. And we've established the reason why. And then we've established the reason why.
Why don't we establish why Earthling Ed does what he does? Is it because he is financed by Blue Horizon? And Blue Horizon owns a company that makes pesticides that are used on crops, pesticides that have been proven to kill mammals and reptiles and birds and fish and insects. So he's actually being funded by animal torture. Earthling Ed is being funded by animal suffering and death. So let's talk about his motivation for what he does.
Why isn't a very good reason why, and actually isn't justified, and when applied to other situations becomes obviously not a good enough justification. And then we've seen a contradiction between what you say you feel about animals and actually the way you are acting towards animals.
And we could say the same for you, Earthling Ed, because you're taking money from Blue Horizons, who profits from animal suffering and death.
So we're kind of met with justifications that don't really work, and also values and feelings that are inherently contradictory. And that's when it becomes a little bit tricky. Do you see what I'm saying?
No.
No. Do you think that your values and your actions are in contradiction?
Yeah. I mean, I love animals, but I love the way they taste too. So it is a bit contradictory.
It is. It is. With that,
Well, is it as contradictory as loving plants and loving the way that plants taste, loving animals and loving the taste of plants when you know that animals are dying in the crops so that you can eat the plants? Crop protection measures are lethal. It's killing mammals, fish, birds, insects, amphibians. So why won't the vegans address crop deaths on a regular basis? Why do they leave that unmentioned?
that in mind, then, do you actually love animals, or do you just say that you do?
I love my dog.
You love your dog.
My dog's an animal
He is.
Yeah.
He is. And why do you love your dog?
because he's my dog.
And what is it about your dog that means that you love them?
They're loyal to me.
And what do you mean
Are
by
fish
that?
loyal to me?
He said they're loyal to me. He's supposed to be talking about his dog, and he says they're loyal to me. He's again, he was there was one moment in there where he didn't seem like an actor, and now he's back to sounding like an actor.
They don't need to be loyal to you to deserve not to be killed by you. But what is it about your dog's loyalty that,
It's the way
that
of the
shows
world,
you?
I mean.
It doesn't have to be the way of the world.
I mean, it doesn't have to be. You're right.
Yeah.
That's in a perfect world, though.
It doesn't have to be. It actually does have to be because, again, there are lots of essential nutrients that you cannot get from a plant-only diet.
The world isn't perfect. And I mean, me changing to veganism isn't going to make the world perfect. So I'm going to live my life.
It's not going to make the world perfect, but if everyone had that mindset about everything, nothing would have ever changed, right? If everyone has that philosophy of, well, I'm only one person, I'll never make a difference, what would ever change? Because change only occurs when a group of individuals all make changes and unite around something that they all agree on. And so change is spawned from individuals, which you are, an individual.
Yeah, that's
What
true.
what is it about your dog that the loyalty they show?
He's so cute.
Yeah, he is cute.
He's adorable.
I'm sure he is.
Yeah.
I'm sure he is. And what about him as an individual? What traits does he have? What characteristics does he have?
I mean, actually, if I go into his trait, he's pretty annoying, actually. He barks a lot, but I mean, I love him
Why does he bark?
because he's a Pomeranian.
Yeah,
A Pomeranian, they bark a lot. Yeah.
So, but they bark at stimulus, interactions, don't they? They bark at things that are happening. In other words, they're having a conscious response to something that's
I
occurring,
see
right?
where you're going with this, sir. I mean,
Where am I going?
Where is he going with this?
they have personalities.
Yes.
They do. You're right. I'm not going to argue that, but
I bet that the rabbits that are killed so that Earthling Ed can have some vegetables or some fruits also have personalities, right? Again, this habit that vegans have of giving human traits to farm animals, but never giving those human traits to the animals that are killed in the crop fields that produce the items on the vegan menu. It gets so old that they just completely ignore this. It shows, to me, it proves the misanthropic nature of veganism.
I mean, there's me. I eat them.
But you love them.
I do love them.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, that is.
But if the dog that you love, you wouldn't eat,
No,
and part of the reason you wouldn't eat is because
But
they
he's a
show.
dog.
Okay. And
I
so
wouldn't
why?
eat dogs.
And why not?
Well, dogs are companions. They are, and there are cultures that eat dogs. However, to raise a dog to eat it, you would have to feed it meat. That's why we don't traditionally raise dogs to eat them. We raise dogs to help us either work or help us hunt or to be our companions. We don't raise cows to help us hunt. We have in the past used cows like oxen to pull the plows, etc. We use horses. We have a symbiotic relationship with these domesticated animals.
I don't think they taste good.
A lot of people would beg to differ. Have you ever tried?
No,
Why not?
because I have a dog.
So that doesn't mean you can't eat a dog.
That's fair enough. I mean, I could eat a dog if I wanted to.
Will you?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't really have. I eat cows and chicken. I mean, I usually stick to both of those.
But why not
And
eat a
fish.
dog? But why not eat a
Earlier, he was saying that he eats mostly fish, and now he's saying that he eats cows and chickens and sticks mostly to those. So he's going off script again.
dog?
I don't think it tastes good.
But let's say they do. Let's say they taste delicious. Would you eat them then?
Again, we're back to the taste pleasure. These actors never bring up nutrition, essential nutrients that you can't get from a plant diet.
Your taste buds are different than mine, sir.
But let's say that you enjoyed the taste. Let's say you took a bite out of a Labrador and thought they were delicious. Would you keep eating?
A live Labrador?
Well, a dead one that's been killed in the ways that you maybe kill your fish, perhaps.
Okay. And it was delicious. I might move to Japan if I really liked it that much, but
Yeah.
that's a cultural difference. I mean,
Sure. I mean, Japan isn't the culture where
I was going to say, I don't think it's Japan. I think it's China.
they do eat dogs. But that the point aside, what you hit there is the important thing. Culture, isn't it? It's cultural things. But just because we don't eat dogs because of the culture we're raised in, doesn't mean that eating dogs is immoral. If we think that eating cows and chickens and pigs is moral because of the culture that we're raised in. In other words, is the consumption of animals or is our behavior? Pardon? What is it? You can go for it. Yeah. But with that in mind, if we talk about culture for a second, the way that we view animals is cultural, right? You don't eat the dog because culturally you see a dog as a companion, someone who's loyal, a pet. But you do eat cows and pigs and chickens because culturally that's the way you've been raised, right? So should culture determine our morality? Or more importantly,
This is another straw man argument to try to use culture as a reason to oppose veganism. That's not a valid excuse. The valid excuse is that there's essential nutrients that we can get from meat that you can't get from plants. Not only that, but having livestock agriculture is also a protection against global famine by having more diverse food sources.
is something moral simply because it's cultural?
oh, that's going into something deep, man.
It's really not deep. This guy's a horrible actor. This is a lame argument, and it's a straw man argument.
What do you think?
I mean, yeah, culture sets the moral.
I mean, it does. But is something moral simply because?
Now I think there's some guy standing out there with cue cards. I think there's a guy standing out there. It looked to me like culture sets the morals. Watch him. I think he's looking at a guy who's standing there with some cue cards for him to read.
What do you think?
I mean, yeah, culture sets the moral.
I mean, it does. But is something moral simply because it's cultural?
No.
So in essence, the way that we view dogs versus cows, pigs, and chickens is cultural. But that doesn't mean that it's moral that we look after dogs in the way that you look after your dog, and rightfully so do. But then that doesn't also mean that it's moral to do the things that we do to cows, pigs, and chickens just because culturally that's the way that we live, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason that you use to not kill your dog is because your dog has a personality, and culturally you don't eat dogs.
Mm-hmm.
But other animals also have personalities and also are intelligent and have traits that make them worthy of moral value in the same way your dog does. And culture doesn't mean moral. And so just because it is cultural to do what we do to cows, pigs, and chickens and all the animals we do kill for food doesn't in and of itself mean that it's a moral thing to do. Right? Do we agree with that?
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm going to ask you this question.
No, I still believe you.
Why not? Why wouldn't you go vegan?
It's gonna be the same reason. They taste good. I mean, yeah, it's morally not right, but I do a lot of things that are immoral. So,
but that doesn't mean that we are justified to do lots of other things that are immoral. We aren't justified to harm another human. We aren't justified to go and kick a dog to death just because we're not moral beings and we live in an imperfect world. I think the important thing is to kind of establish the inconsistencies, the contradictions. You've acknowledged.
How about the inconsistencies and the contradictions when you never talk about crop deaths, you never talk about pesticides, gunmen who shoot animals in the face for standing in the crop fields.
They exist. You've acknowledged that what we do to animals is immoral.
Yeah, no, I'm not blind.
No, I don't want to ask you the same questions over and over again, but I do appreciate your time very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. So we made it through another one of these fake debates. I think we'll end it there. We've been going long enough. For those that were here for the first half, I apologize for having the sound issues. Hopefully we were able to go back and go over everything that we missed. I appreciate y'all showing up today. Thank you for your support. And we'll be talking